name is Dr. Bonita Sharif, and I'm an associate professor here in the School of Computing, and I direct the Software Engineering Research and Empirical Studies Lab. iTrace is community eye tracking infrastructure that lets researchers collect eye tracking data in a seamless way within an integrated development environment. It makes conducting studies on a large scale feasible when prior to this we were not able to do it. We were only able to do this with short code snippets, which were typically shown as images. When the participant first comes to our lab, we make them sign the consent form, and then the first thing we do is have them sit in front of the eye tracker, and we need to calibrate them. For the calibration, we need to make sure they are within a certain head box. We look at the distance from the screen and make sure that that is fairly reasonable, and then we calibrate. We usually do a 9-point calibration. Once the calibration is done, then we need to put in some information, some metadata about the experiment itself. We call this a session. So we have a session setup tab in our iTrace infrastructure where you can input the task name, maybe your researcher name, and a participant ID. This is a random ID we give to our participants, and also the place where our data will be stored, so a folder name. So once we set up our calibration and our session, we need to make sure we select our eye tracker from the drop-down menu. After we select the tracker, we basically need to choose a plugin. So we have a selection of 3 different plugins we can use: the iTrace Atom, iTrace Eclipse, and iTrace Visual Studio. There's also iTrace Chrome, which is in the browser. So depending on which one you use, you want to make sure you open that up and then connect that to iTrace Core. This is a client-server architecture, so we need to make sure the core and the plugins talk to each other. Once the plugin is selected and the core and the plugin is connected, the participant can perform their task. They can go ahead and read the code. If the task is to fix a bug, they can go in and open any number of files from the Explorer you see in Eclipse and open up the files, read them, and then figure out what they need to do to fix the bug. There are several things one needs to do. Once you finish tracking, you need to make sure the data is later processed. So as a researcher, you would actually at this point import this data into our post-processing tool. It's called iTrace Toolkit, where you would actually import the plugin and the core files, and then basically do 2 things. Map the cases to specific source code tokens and generate fixations. You also have the option of querying data and exporting the files to a CSV format to do additional statistical analysis on it.